Hi, it's Tamby again. This is actually a recent video that I'm filming right now. Um, so this is Tamby. I thought that I would do another story time. But first I want to talk about a different topic real quick. It's been a while since I posted a video, and I want to be honest with you. I am really struggling with mental health. I can get into that a little bit later. Sorry for the bad lighting and my mess of art supplies back there. The last couple of years have been a very wild ride. I definitely have had the dark night of the soul, and that is not for the weak whatsoever. This video is really hard for me because I was supposed to do this video, I don't even know how long ago. It's been a while since I was supposed to do this video, but since then I have learned that I have a autoimmune disease. And that is why I'm really chunky. I've gained a lot of weight. And I can't 100% control it. Well, I mean, I'm getting on medication. I'm on medication. So, it's going to regulate, hopefully, and I will lose the weight, get healthy, and hopefully not have all the problems that I've been having because of my autoimmune disorder, which makes surviving just really hard to do, which makes my mental health worse. But yeah, I thought that I would start the intro like that and talk about the video that I'm going to do. So starting where I left off on my other story time video about my story of aging out of foster care. I'm gonna wing it today. I don't have my notes that I normally have because it makes it easier so I don't rant. So if I rant in this video, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get this done for you and for me, and to document my experience, and hopefully it's helpful to somebody else. So where I left off in the other video was CPS coming to take my son. I had no control over what was happening. I couldn't defend myself, and I was really scared. And I was alone. I didn't have help. I was young. And I wish everything in me that I could have left state and protected my son from the situation, but I was too scared to do that too because it was new. But where I left off is them taking my son. I ended up going to stay with my foster parents. I stayed in a cabin nearby. It didn't really have plumbing. It had a sink that had water that came out of it and a washer, but it didn't have a toilet or anything, which, you know, I like the old ways. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I had a problem with is it was really hard, especially because my foster mother was possessive. She could not handle women. I don't know what it is, but she could not handle teenage girls or girls of that matter. I don't know if she felt like we were in competition or what, but she just could not handle girls. And that can be in another video as well, talking about different foster families that I've had and my story with, you know, my last foster family, which is also going to be hard because, you know, I really love them and Yeah, it's just not a good story. So I was living on the property and I got to see my son every day, which wasn't a problem, but I barely got to spend time with my son. So I remember one day that I had went over there and my son was screaming on the top of his lungs. Like, he was beat red in the face. He was screaming and crying, full tears. And I knew that he was hungry. So I asked my foster mother if I could feed him. And she said no. She said that I couldn't feed him because it hadn't been the full 2-3 hours, which there was only 30 minutes left of that. But she told me I was not allowed to feed my son, even though he was screaming that he was hungry and even crying full-on tears. I got upset because obviously, he's my son and he was hungry and I was told that I wasn't allowed to feed him. So then he screamed for like 30 minutes straight in my arms. And this is what really upset me too, is my foster brother's new wife, which I wasn't really a fan of to begin with. This just made it worse. She walked up to me with a bottle in her hand and quite forcefully took my baby out of my hand and said, "Let's show her how it's done." And I was not allowed to say a word. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't risk anything bad happening or me losing being able to see my kid. And I knew that that could happen, especially because of how much of a hothead my foster mother was. So that was really distressing to me, not only to have her running her mouth, me not getting enough time with my kid because I had to constantly give my kid to everybody, even people I didn't know and people I didn't trust, and I was not allowed to say no. I had to do what I was told to do, or I would be in trouble and I would lose the ability to see my son. And so basically that was really rough on me. And I started to have some mental health issues. I was right that my son was literally down a skip away right there at the house. And I couldn't just go there anytime I wanted. I couldn't go see my son anytime I wanted. I couldn't hold my baby whenever I wanted. And so it was really heartbreaking to be on the same land as my kid, and I couldn't even see my child. So I got really upset, obviously, and I told myself, you know what? I need to get to Missoula because that's my main place where I'm from, and I can get on vouchers. I can do this by myself. I can prove to these people that I can be a mom. So that's what I did. I called some people I thought I could trust. They came and picked me up, took me to Missoula, and I really, really tried to get into places, but it felt like I was blacklisted or something. And no matter what I did, I couldn't get into a place. And I kept getting gypped into jobs, and I didn't get paid as much as I was promised. So, I would work really, really hard to get absolutely nowhere, and it looked like I wasn't doing what I was supposed to. So it got really frustrating because no one saw the hard work I was doing for my kid. And I was expected to do things that normal parents who live low income couldn't do. They would have to have 3-4 jobs just to do what I was doing. And I wasn't allowed to use the resources that normal parents would have been able to use, so I didn't have a chance. I was set up to fail from the very beginning. And it was very disheartening because I didn't know what to do. So I moved to Missoula trying to get my foot in the door, and I couldn't get anyone to help me. I couldn't get into an apartment. I could get a job, but something would happen, and it wasn't like I did anything wrong. It was like I was targeted in some way, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's exactly how I felt. I felt like I was being blacklisted, and no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough for CPS because they were never planning on giving my baby back, because they were making money off my baby, and they would get more money if they adopted my kid out because they had already promised my kid to a couple. So I started trying to get rid of a lot of people out of my life. And I have a cousin. Her name is Shannon. And she is kind of crazy. She had convinced someone to kill themselves. At least that's what she said. And she thought it was really funny. Like, that's how messed up she is. She was sleeping around and sleeping with people's husbands. If she didn't like someone's face, she would sleep with their husband, call CPS on them, and make them lose their kids. She made me look like I had lost my mind. And CPS literally grabbed onto that and was like, oh, she's mentally ill, she's worried that people are out to get her, and all this other stuff. Like, it was frustrating. So every time I tried to talk about something or try to get help with something, they just said I was paranoid and I was crazy, without taking into account the stuff that happened to me. So when I tried to get her out of my life, she threatened me. She said that she would make sure that I lost my son. She did this while I was pregnant, though, but she continued after the fact. At least that's what she was telling me, that she was constantly calling CPS on me, and stuff. With my second kid, she called CPS on me with my second child because she assumed that I was just constantly calling CPS on her, and that wasn't the case. You know, if I have ever made a CPS case, it's because I really truly believe that that child is in danger. I wouldn't want to just willy-nilly throw a kid in foster care, you know, because I used to be that kid. I know how bad it is. And she made me look crazy. And so as I was trying to fight to get things going, my main judge stepped away temporarily because he was on vacation, so I was told. And I had a temporary stand-in judge, and she was actually really nice. And I didn't feel like there was anything biased. I didn't feel like anything was wrong with her. I felt like she was actually a good judge, that she was actually trying to do her job. I don't remember if her name was like Debbie or Barb or something. I don't remember what her name was, but she was really good. And after all this time of fighting, trying to get someone to give me a chance with my kid, she stepped in. And she goes, you know what, she's right. You know, you need to give her a chance. And they said, you know, you can go into this place called Mountain Home, Montana. And don't even get me started on that place. That place is awful. And especially for people who are dealing with CPS. And so they said, if you stay in this home for 30 days, we will give you your kid back for a trial run and see how you do. Because Mountain Home is a place for young moms. There's staff there. There's people who are professionals there that can help and stuff. It's an unwed home. So I agreed. I said, absolutely, I'll go. And so I did. I was there for 30 days. Then when the next court hearing came about, I asked if I could get my son back. CPS said that 30 days was not enough. And even though they gave me extra visiting, like 4 hours once a week or whatever it was. It was way more than I was normally getting since I moved into that home. And I was doing really well with my kid there. And for visits, of course. And what happened was, so they said it wasn't enough time. So they asked for another 30 days. And all this extra stuff, I truly believe it was because they were sabotaging me. Because ever since I moved into that home, I was constantly being targeted. And I learned later on that that place was terrified of CPS. That they were scared because of something that they had done in the past with another person's child, where a newborn baby got hurt, and they're paying the price. And so they even told me that they were scared about that, and that no one would listen to them, and they did what they thought CPS wanted them to do, is lie. And that's what they did, is lie in court. But basically, the therapist had me wrapped around her finger or whatever. She lied to me the whole way. Like, she was like, oh, you didn't deserve to lose your kid and all this other stuff, like putting things in my head. But when I was there, they basically were constantly targeting me. And what I mean by that is every little thing they came after me for. Constantly writing me up. Even while I was getting used to the rules, I wasn't allowed to have a mini baby trash can. I was not allowed to have that any more than half full, even if it was just paper. Even things where I was following the rules, they would find some way to twist it or make something up to say that I wasn't following the rules when I was. It was in the handbook. I even got wrote up because the staff told me to do something and I did it. And then I got written up for doing it. I got written up because I went to the hospital because I had a cyst on my ovaries and I was in excruciating pain. So they wrote me up for that. There's a list, and I just felt like they were constantly attacking me. So then after the 30 days, they said it wasn't enough, and they got the extra 30 days. It got worse. Like, they were like really coming after me. And the thing is that they work with other people. Like, they were way more patient with people. There was people that they should have called CPS on and they never did. And I was the only one that was being targeted the way that they were doing it. And so I don't remember how long after I went to the hospital with my cyst on my ovary. But after that, they called a emergency meeting, and I was with my ex-husband at the time, and my husband was there, and I was sitting in the room with everybody, and they told me that I was being evicted because I had gotten a lot of write-ups. And I was devastated. I was devastated because that was my only chance to prove to everyone I could do it. And I was being evicted. And I knew people would be like, I told you so, I told you so. You couldn't even do that. So why would we give you your kid back? That's literally what they would tell me on a constant basis. So my husband got really upset because I burst into tears, and he ran out of the room because he has a temper. So he ran out of the room so that he wouldn't get me in trouble. And I just cried. I cried because I knew it was done. I knew that I probably would never get my kid back. And I tried my hardest there. And I felt like I was being attacked. And so I got evicted. I had to move out, which I did. And it got used against me because I was evicted. But I later found out that I was being targeted because of the fact that this home was scared of CPS. It had nothing to do with me. And CPS, I truly believe, was in on it. I truly believe, because they do that stuff all the time. And so they used the Mountain Home Montana thing as far as they could throw it. And when push came to shove, CPS had a meeting with me and threatened me, saying that if I didn't sign my son away, I could never see him ever again. And I would never be able to have future children, which is coercion. It's against the law to threaten anyone to sign illegal documents. And so I refused. I knew my rights by then. I wanted a chance to fight back. They got angry. They said, we can do whatever we want to you because you don't have the money to fight back. They said it word for word, exactly like that. And I literally looked at my lawyer for help, and she hid behind someone like this. And it was just like I was all alone. I didn't have support, and the only person that was in that room that could defend me, she's gone. She was my oldest son's dad. And last couple of years, she had died. So she can't stand up for me because she heard it all. She heard everything that they said to me. And I was alone. Then they started saying that they would win the case and that the judge will do what they want, and that, if I didn't sign, they would make sure I never got to see my kid ever again. So essentially threatening me. And then telling me that there's nothing that I could do. So essentially I was powerless. And obviously I left really upset. Then I knew that I wasn't going to win, but I thought that, if I could go back and do something, that I would. And that I was told that if I signed, that I could lose all my right to fight back. So I refused to sign, and I thought I was doing what was best. They constantly were taking my child on vacations and lying about it and saying that I was never showing up for visits, but that's not true. There was a couple times where I was sick and I couldn't go to a visit, stuff like that, which they heavily used against me. And then they said that because my kid was in care for a certain amount of time, which I think is why they kept pushing things forward and forward, kept asking for extensions. And technically they have 60 days to prove everything that they're saying. If they do not prove it, then they have to give the child back within 60 days. And they didn't do that. Yes, the judge can ask or can give them an extension, but they were like, extension, like constantly asking for an extension. And then when push came to shove, when the time frame ran out, they immediately filed for custody so that they could adopt my kid out. So then later on down the line, when so I had lost my rights to my son, at least illegally anyways. I I was really cocky. I really thought that if it went to Supreme Court, I was going to be listened to, but that wasn't the case at all, because none of the stuff that would have helped, they would not send to the Supreme Court. So I basically was unable to show proof and evidence that I was innocent because they wouldn't let me send it. And I truly believe that the lawyers, the public defenders, they're in on it too. I'm not sure if the Supreme Court public defenders are, but I know the main ones are, and I know some of the Supreme Court lawyers are because of my experience. And so I kind of laughed at them because I thought that I was going to be heard, and that's not what happened at all. And then right when the case ended, I magically got into an apartment. Make that make sense. I was unable to get anything for my whole CPS case. And the minute it's closed, apartment came out of thin air. I truly believe that I was blacklisted. I truly do believe that. Because no matter what I tried to do, I couldn't get anything done. So when I went to, with my second kid, I sneaked off to a different town. I got into an apartment. I had a job and everything. But I didn't tell anybody. And guess who got an apartment? Me, because I didn't tell anybody. If I would have told somebody, I think I would have been blacklisted. But during my case, I had reported that my son was really having a hard time being separated from me, because he was. He was having night terrors, which I was told that was happening. And they kept asking me to give them one of my shirts to console him at night when he would have these night terrors. So I did. And after visits, he would have full-blown meltdowns, start screaming and crying, turning red, starting to shake and grab onto me, screaming and stuff. So he would start screaming and shaking and grabbing onto me, and he was being traumatized by being separated from me. And they tried to say it was in my head because they were trying to lie. But then, we were ordered to go to this, professional doctor thing, which I truly believe doctors are in on it too. And they all get paid or they're afraid. So this doctor had me come in, and at first she was videotaping me. And she videotaped the whole thing, but she videotaped me and said that I was not allowed to use the video as evidence. She forced me to sign a paper because I was very desperate to get this proof and to prove to CPS that this is it. I was desperate because they were using my kid as a weapon. And I was told that if I didn't sign paperwork that they wanted me to, I would never get to see my son ever again. So I didn't want to sign the document that said I wasn't allowed to use this video as evidence, but I felt like I had no choice. So I signed it, and then we got to, and they videotaped this too, by the way. There's a two-way mirror. First, they left my son with the foster family, and they had me leave the room. And then I went over to the other side of the glass where he couldn't see me. He started screaming and crying and freaking out even when he was being left with the foster family. And he started freaking out, trying to push people away. And then they had me go back in. And then they had the foster parents leave. He was fine in my arms. He wasn't screaming or anything. And then they had me leave my kid alone with the doctor. My son started screaming bloody murder when I left the room. And then the last time what happened is that we left him alone by himself. He started shaking, turning bright red, crying, and he fell to his knees and he was face first onto the floor, and he was shaking and crying. I couldn't handle it, so I begged the doctor to let me go to my son and comfort him, and she said yes. So I comforted my baby, and I distracted him, made him feel better. The doctor said I did a really good job with that, but then proceeded to tell me because I had cried that I was emotionally unstable. So that is one reason why she thinks that I shouldn't have my kid, is because she believed that I was emotionally unstable because I cried and because I was angry about what CPS was doing to me. So I wasn't allowed to use that evidence. They said that it was in my son's best interest to be away from me, and it wasn't, because it was traumatizing my son. Then when I got my apartment and everything was said and done, when I lost my son, I went off the deep end. I started drinking heavily, partying, hanging out with people that I shouldn't. I really was having a rough time because of grief, because I missed my child. And I was in so much pain, and I felt so powerless that I couldn't do anything about it because I wasn't rich. I couldn't afford a good lawyer to get my son home, and CPS knew that. I didn't know if my son was even okay, because I know that foster kids are known to die in foster care, and I was scared that something bad was going to happen to him, especially because of how he was whisked away in secret. So my foster parents, they betrayed me. I trusted my foster dad with my life, and I trusted him with something that I love the most, my son. And in secret, my foster dad, gave my son away to strangers, and because they couldn't have kids, even though he promised me that he would adopt my son and give me a chance with my child, and he betrayed me. He says he feels bad about it now, and that he wished he never did what he had done, giving my son away like some commodity, like my son's a potato. He said he wishes he could take it all back, but he can't. And basically because of the way that my son was whisked away, and I was being punished by CPS because I refused the sign, I then was 10 times more worried about my son. And in the worry and grief and being shut out, I started being destructive. I started drinking and partying and hanging out with the wrong people. And then I found, I thought of him as a good man, but he did have a background. He made a mistake. He got punished for it, and now he's living his life. And I fell in love with this man. I was very, very deeply in love with this man. And I had gotten pregnant with my second child. I was over the moon. I was really excited, and I thought that the baby's father would be happy too. but he wasn't. And whatever it was pushed him away, and he was a recovering addict. He was clean and sober when we met. And then he relapsed and started making bad choices and hanging around the wrong people. And he left me all alone. He left me to fend for myself and our baby. He left me to fight CPS on my own. Which is really hard, because I knew half of the reason why the nurses called CPS is because they're old-fashioned and they believe that unwed mothers should not have children. And I was also told that by a nurse. And so basically, after I had my baby, I was evicted from the apartment I was living at because of my choices. I will admit that. I had people staying with me. I was being destructive way before I got pregnant. And I rescued some animals. Now, this is where it's going to get in depth and even more messed up, because I truly believe that CPS was behind all of this. Just like how they could blacklist me the way that they did from apartments and jobs and stuff, I truly believe that they would purposely go out of their way to get someone charged with a heinous crime so that they could use it against them and take their children. And this is what happened, and I will warn you right now, it is graphic. So if you can't handle graphic, I'll try to censor it as much as possible. But this is serious. It talks about animal cruelty and stuff, and I promise you that I am innocent through and through. I would never hurt an animal. And so basically what happened is, during destructiveness, I had allowed someone who I later on found out was an addict to stay with me, because I thought of her cat who was pregnant and she was homeless, and I was really scared for that cat, so I wanted to give her a safe place to give birth and have her babies and stuff. So I allowed this girl to come stay with me with her cat who was pregnant to have her babies. And the babies were so cute. I was with the mama the whole time that she was giving birth to her babies. She was practically a baby herself. I started noticing that she wasn't a good fit. That the owner wasn't a good fit for any animal whatsoever. And I started to grow concerned because of her behavior. I watched this woman punch the mama cat in the face. She wasn't getting the mama cat food or changing the litter box, which was a cardboard box and a blanket. And I didn't realize how bad the litter box was until I tried to lift it up to throw it away, and it broke through because she wasn't changing it. So before she fully left, well, actually no, she left because she got angry with me, and she left because I rescued the kittens from her. Let's just say that. And because she was abusing them, starving them, stuff like that. And I didn't have it in me to allow her to continue to do that. I tried multiple times to call animal control. They said that they couldn't do anything about it, even though they immediately went after me. No evidence, no nothing. Just went after me like I was some serial killer. And the mama kitty was not fit to be a mama either. She was very mean to her own kittens. She would purposely roll on top of them till they were like muffled screaming under her. If further in the story, you'll realize even more why this mama cat was not fit to be a mom, or at least be alone with her children, her kitten babies. So basically, I had rescued the kittens, and the police kept trying to get me to give it back, but they realized that I was rescuing them, so they said that I was in the right. But then animal cops got involved, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, they only listen to your side of the story. Like this other, the person who had them in the first place had a story to begin with. She was an addict. She was literally planning on giving these kittens to random strangers for the M word, for certain drugs. And I didn't feel comfortable allowing her to do that, especially starving them, stuff like that, when I had to practically beg her to take the mama and the kittens to the vets. She told me that the mom and the kittens were underweight, and the doctor thought that they had leukemia, but really it was because she was starving them. And so I couldn't see that anymore, and I tried to buy everything, kitty litter, food, all that. It didn't matter. She didn't care about those animals, not even one bit. So basically what happened is I was pregnant. I was planning on leaving the state to go live with my mother, which wasn't a good situation anyways. I was just desperate. And I was going to take the kittens with me, get them to the vet and rehome them, stuff like that. And I had put them in a temporary cage with their litter box. And we were planning to go pick up the U-Haul and stuff like that. And I didn't realize that the person that was supposed to be helping me was actually working with the animal cops. So the animal cops had got this person to drive to her house and then hold me hostage and threaten me. Because I had just gotten my dog back when it was stolen. That is a whole other story. And the police didn't care. They didn't believe me. And then when I got my dog back, they then tried to charge me for what the people did to her. And it wasn't my fault. It's their fault because they never listened to me. So the animal cop was like, if you don't give me these kittens right now, I'm going to take your dog. I was like, why? Because you're not listening. I was like, no, like you can't take my dog. And my dog was scared and my dog kept trying to run away from him. And finally I was like, fine, take the kittens. And because I was being threatened. Otherwise I would have held my ground because I knew I was doing the right thing. And I wanted the best for those kittens. But beforehand, I know I should have said this before that part, before they got fully taken. But beforehand, the first thing that happened was I was going through mental health services, and one of the workers that was from Mountain Home, she was going to take me shopping or whatever, but she wanted to see the kittens. And I told her, I said, do not lift the lid because I'm going to have to deal with it because the kittens will start trying to like climb out and they would get hurt. And I was heavily pregnant. So this lady did not listen to me. She lifted the lid and the kittens started to file out like a zombie apocalypse. And I started juggling the kittens. Mama cat jumped in, landed right on her baby, one of her smallest babies, and paralyzed it from head to toe. And I was blamed for it. The way that they wrote that in the article online, they wrote it as if I snapped that poor baby's back myself. And it wasn't me. It was the mama cat. And no matter what I said, no one believed me. So instead of going to get groceries, we were in an emergency situation because the cat was severely injured. And so I asked her to take me to the vet. We started running to different vets because several of them said that they couldn't help us. And then one of them said that they would have to put her down. So they asked me if I wanted to go back there. I started crying and told them that I couldn't. The doctor hugged me. And then we left and I was in the car crying, and the worker said, you know what, I can see you're really overwhelmed and you're pregnant. Like, let me take the kittens off your hands. She was like, I can't take the mama cat, but I can take the kittens. And I told her, I was like, the only way that would work is if you agree to do it my way, because I'm very protective over those kittens and I wanted to make sure that they had a good life and they were adopted by good people. And she promised me that she was going to do that. She promised me that I would be able to pick the families that they would go to. She said she was a breeder or something like that. And so she took the kittens for me because she said she was going to help me. But then when I got home and I was taking a nap and I woke up at 9 p.m. to a text message saying, forget about the kittens, I'll take care of it. And I was immediately upset. And so when I was being taken to work the next day, I was talking to another worker and I said, you know what she did was not okay. And we agreed to something and she did not follow through. And now she wants to take me out of the equation of trying to make sure these kittens are safe. And I'm not okay with it. I said, please do not talk to her about it. I will talk to her about it myself because I know this could blow up. That staff did not listen to me and immediately went to that other staff member. And a big fight broke out. And not a fist fight, of course. And we were arguing over the phone. And I said, you know what? If you do not give me those kittens back, I'm calling the police. And I'm going to get theft on you because you promised that you would follow my guidelines and then you cut me out. I said, I'm not doing that. Nope. You broke my trust. This is not what we're doing. So then she's like, well, if I bring them back, I'm going to call animal control on you. So they called animal control and they called CPS on me because she couldn't keep the animals. And that was frustrating in itself. So then what ended up happening was something really bad happened a second time, which I have nightmares from. I know most people wouldn't, but for me it was very messed up. And I didn't know that it was going to happen that way. I had went to before work, I had put the kittens in the bathroom. I thought I made sure I had put the toilet seat down. They weren't big enough to jump up like that. So after work, I came home and I started hearing weird noises in the bathroom. And I always thought it was the kittens because, sometimes the kittens, they had like I call it a broken squeaker because their meows sound weird even when, they're with me, not in the bathroom. And I only do that when I'm not home to make sure that they're safe. And I was getting ready to make their food because they had to have special food because they were kittens and getting used to solids. And I went in, I put the plate down, and all the kittens ran but one. And I heard this weird noise. I looked down and noticed that one of the kittens was in the toilet. And it was flat. And it was whining and crying and twitching. And I immediately had a meltdown right there. I started crying and hyperventilating, and I called the person who dropped me off from work, and I begged them to come back and help me. So they came back and helped me. And they were supposed to take the kitten immediately to the vet, but they didn't because they wanted a different car. They could have drove in the car that they had, but they didn't want to. They wanted the truck or something. So they were willing to risk this kitten's life so that they could have a different car. And I got mad at them, snapped at them, and told them to figure it out because they were going to end up killing that kitten. I was then told that the kitten died from hypothermia. But then when I was reading the court paperwork, I found out that the kitten did not die. It was put in foster care, which I'm glad it didn't die, but like, why lie to me? You know? And the next day I started having a reoccurring nightmare where I would literally wake up out of a dead sleep, feel like there was water and hair in my mouth, and I would start choking on invisible hair and water in my mouth, like cat hair. And I remember the first time it happened, I woke up crying and choking. It was awful. And I felt like I was being punished even though it wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. I was at work. I thought I did my due diligence to make sure that they didn't get hurt. And that was also reported to CPS. So after that, I started even more getting hunted by the animal cops. And then they got that very person that took that one cat to the vet. They used her to like entrap me so that they could threaten me to get me to give them the kittens that I was trying to help. And as you can see, it did not go well. The lawyer on the case, the original lawyer, threatened me, said that if I didn't sign documents admitting to it, and having rules set where I can't have animals and I can't do this and I can't do that, and I would have to see this weird therapist that's meant for pedophiles. And it made me feel really gross. So they forced me into signing a legal document I didn't want to sign because I was afraid. They told me I would go to prison if I didn't sign it. And I was afraid that, I wouldn't be able to be there for my kid. So I signed it, not wanting to, and I told them multiple times that I didn't want to sign it. Then right after, she quit her job. Make that make sense. And then I was assigned a new lawyer. Get this. The new lawyer for the animal cruelty case was the same lawyer doing my CPS stuff. And guess who the judge was? The same judge that was doing my CPS case. The bad one, not the good one that was temporarily there. But keep in mind, this judge I've known since I was a child. I've known him since I was 9 years old, which means it was a conflict of interest, which means that he had biased opinions that he was not allowed to have, and he should have never been on my case. He should have immediately stepped down, and he did not. The public, or the defender on the other side for CPS, she also have known me since I was a child as well, which is also a conflict of interest. And which makes things even more fishy is the fact that the animal cruelty case that I was innocent of, they were all working together. So I had, yeah, let's just say that, is that I truly believe that all this was in tandem, and all the judge and the lawyers and everything was the same. Also, they were able to get certain things that were supposed to be private. And I also, with my second case, I got arrested. So there's that, even though I was innocent. So after all that, they had, the police had sold my information to the news, or not my information because it wasn't even fact. And they wrote a really awful article about me that put my life in danger. I had death threats. People in public were pointing me out and being like, oh, I know that girl. She's the girl that did this and this and this and this. And I started to not feel safe. Because even people were being like, I hope you get your neck snapped. I hope that you go in a cage and you rot and all this other stuff. And it was really stressful, and it affected my mental health. Yeah. Then I ended up in this shelter for families, and there's children there too. So like, what happened next just doesn't make sense. So I moved into this shelter. That was a secret location for safety reasons. And then it was time to have my baby, and I went to the hospital. I was so scared that I did not sleep, which was also used against me. So actually, I kind of want to back it up a little bit because I forgot a really crucial part during my second pregnancy. And basically, I was told by one of my foster families that had my aunt, who's a nurse. She said, Tambi, you need to be really careful because you are single, and I know of some nurses who target single mothers and call CPS on them because they're not married. So I decided to do something to prove it, which I know it happened anyways, but I wanted like full proof for me that this was happening. So basically what I did is I had a friend at that time when I was having problems and I needed to go to the hospital. I had that friend come in with me, and we acted like a couple. We were together, even though we weren't. And he was really good. He stayed with me all night, stuff like that. And one of the nurses came in and she goes, Tambi, I know you're scared that we're going to call CPS on you. We're not going to do that, okay? You got a good situation for you. We're not going to call CPS. Nothing. And then, like tandem, like the next time I went into the hospital, she's like, one of the nurses is like, where's your man? I was like, oh, we're not together anymore. And immediately the nurse left. And while I was in the room, I heard a notification on their computer. And it literally said, you need to call CPS on Miss Mason. For what? Nothing happened that day that needed or warranted them to call CPS. The only thing I could think of is the fact that, oh, I'm now single, I don't have a man. Even though we weren't together in the first place. So basically, I was able to prove that at least half of the reason that they called CPS on me was because I was single. So when it was time to have my baby, and I was still single, I had a C-section. I really felt like that C-section was forced because it was not an emergency. It did not need to happen. And I was scared the whole way. I was scared that I was going to wake up and my baby was going to be gone. And so they sent mental health my way because they said I was manically crazy. That wasn't true. But the mental health professional said, she is not manically crazy. She is just a scared mother. She is fine. And he even told them not to call CPS on me. And they called CPS on me anyways and lied. And then when, like you can tell that the CPS worker just did not care about the families or the children. And then after a certain amount of time, they had this Amish family that could barely even take care of my son at that point, because they had to keep asking for assistance. And so I was giving them assistance as much as I could, buying them diapers, buying them cereal for my son. But they took my son for part of it. Their daughter, who was like 16 at the time, according to them, she was married and had a husband and had a child, and she was raising my son at that time. I'm gonna do a part 2 because this video is already 2 hours long. So I will see you in the... Wait, this isn't part 2. This is part 3. I will see you in part 3.